Alrighty, welcome back to another thrilling installment of whatever this stream is called nowadays. Fraggoth reads? Sure, why not? I'm your intrepid narrator, Fraggoth, and today we're going to be reading through, well, I'll be reading. You'll be listening. Or whatever. Whatever we do these days. Through more of Cyteen by C.J. Cherryh. So, last time, the big event that occurred was that little Ari Emery's mother and sort of father figure, in the form of Jane Strassen and Ollie, Ollie being an Azzy, have left. She has been transferred to Fargon. She might as well be dead, as far as Ari is concerned. Ari is not taking it terribly well. The general conclusion she has come to is that if you dare to love a thing, they will take it away from you. And instead of being like, oh, just give up and abandon all hope, she is instead going the route of, I'm going to fight the system. is more or less, or she hasn't quite formulated that far yet, but it's clear that that's sort of where her little brain is going. Her developing mind is going. Is, this isn't right. I ain't got to take this. But she's having to mature in a hurry, basically. And given that we know that this whole arrangement, this project, is supposed to replicate the original Ariane Emery's life as closely as possible, one has to wonder what happened to her parents throughout all that. Certainly, Justin doesn't think any of it's right. He thinks it's pretty messed up himself, and he should know, 'cause he's had a pretty messed up home life. Anyway, that's kind of the biggie. Yes, last time was a bit of a short one. I keep trying to think, keep thinking that it was the day before. This one will be a bit of a short one. We should have a bit of a longer one tomorrow, though. I think once I see how long this one goes, yeah, that should be very. It'll be a bit meatier tomorrow. But not so long that I am wheezing and gasping for air at the end of it all. Anyway, let's gear up for some more Cyteen. Hopefully my keyboard is dying on me. I have a replacement that has just come in, so... actually, it's old. It hasn't just come in. It's an old keyboard I've had floating around for a while. So I've got to get I just have to do the swapping of the USB slots. So if things don't work or work oddly, that is probably why. It's like randomly pressing keys. It's not taking key inputs for things like the escape key and the space bar. Hence why the stream description today is so short. There are reasons for all this. All right, let me get some more fluid in me, and we will rock and roll. Nine. Florian was late again.
There was a shortcut along between 240 and 241, and he took it, dodging out between two groups of olders and skipping backward to nod a courtesy and murmur, "Excuse me, please," before he turned and sprinted across the road and up to security. "I'm very sorry," he said, arriving at the desk inside Square One. He was trying not to pant as he handed his chit to the Azzy at the desk. The man looked at the chit and put it in his machine. "Blue to white to brown," the man said. "Change in brown. Instructions there." "Yes," he said, and looked where the man pointed. Blue started with that door, and he went, not running, but going in a great hurry. He knew he was still late when he got to Brown. The Azzy in charge was waiting for him. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm Florian, AF-9979. The man looked him over and said, "Size 6M, cabinets on the wall, go change. Hurry." "Yes," he said, and went into the changing room, hunted quickly for 6M, pulled out the plastic packet, and threw it onto the bench while he peeled out of his clothes. He put the black uniform on, sat down quick to pull on the socks and put on the slippers, then hung his AG uniform on the pegs beside uniforms of all sizes and colors. He was so nervous he almost forgot his new keycard, but he got it off his other coveralls and clipped it to the black ones, then raked a hand through his hair and hurried outside again. "Down the hall," the Azzy with the clipboard said. "Brown to green. Run." He ran, and followed the halls till he found a door marked with green in brown. Inside, then, into a gym. He came bursting in where there was a man with a clipboard, and another younger, who was dressed like him, in black coveralls. Who was a girl. He felt a shock, but gut level, reacted to the super and made a little bow. "Sorry I'm late, sir." The super looked at him just long enough to keep him worried, and he did not dare look back at the girl who was, he was sure now, here just like he was, to find her partner for this assignment. Assignment with a capital A. Then the super made a mark on his board and said, "Florian, this is Catelyn. Catelyn is your partner." Florian looked at the girl again, his heart beating hard. It was a mistake. It must be. He was late. He got a girl partner. He was supposed to change bunks, and he had thought he was supposed to bunk with his partner. Wrong, then. He did not know where he was going to sleep. He wanted his classes back. He had been upset about the new assignment, even if his old super told him he could still have ag on his rec hours. He wanted... But the girl bothered him. She was blonde, blue-eyed, a scab on her chin. She was taller than he was, but that was nothing unusual. She had a thin, very serious face. He thought he had seen her before. She stared at him the way you weren't supposed to stare. Then he realized he was doing it too. "Catelyn," the super said, "you know the way from here. Take Florian over to staging. Talk to the super there." "Yes, sir," she said, and Florian almost asked the super to look and check if there was some mistake, but he was late. He had gotten a bad start with this man, and he did not know why he was as upset as he was, but he was panicked. Catelyn was already going. He caught up with her as she walked toward another door behind the hanging buffer mats at the end of the gym. She used her keycard, held the door for him, and led the way into another long cement hallway. Downstairs, then, and another cement hall. "I'm supposed to have a bunk assignment?" he said finally, behind her. She looked back on the stairs, and he caught up with her in the long concrete hall at the bottom. 22, like me," she said. "We're going in with olders. Partners room together, 2 and 2. He was shocked. But she seemed to know what was right, and she was not upset. So he just walked behind her, wondering if somehow the computers had glitched up and he was supposed to have gotten tape to explain all this and help him not make mistakes. He had, he thought, to talk to the super where they were going. They got to the other place. Catelyn keyed in, and there was a super sitting at a desk. "Sir," Catelyn said. "Catelyn and Florian, sir." "Late," the super said. "Yes, sir," Catelyn said. "My fault," Florian said. "Sir—" "Excuses don't matter. You're assigned to security. You go into staging, you pick out what you think you might need, and both of you will be and both of you will be right. All right. 15 minutes to get your equipment. You do mess, you've got this evening to plan it out. You'll do a room tomorrow morning. It's a 1-hour course. You can talk about it. You're supposed to. Go.
He said, Sir, I have to feed the pigs. Am I supposed to have gotten tape about this? I haven't.
The super looked straight at him. Florian, you'll do AG when you aren't doing security. This is your assignment. You can go to AG in your rec time. 4 hours rec time for every good pass through the room. There isn't any tape for this. It's up at 0500, drill at 0530, breakfast at 0630, then tape, room or rec, whatever the schedule calls for. Noon mess as you can catch it. Follow your schedule. Evening mess at 2000. Follow your schedule. In bunks at 2300 most nights. If you've got any problems, you talk to your instructor. Catelyn knows. Ask her.
Yes, sir, Florian breathed, thinking, what about Andy? What about the pigs? They said I could go to AG.
And because the super had answered and he was terribly afraid this was the right assignment, he caught up with Catelyn. It was a staging room. Like in the game, he knew. His old super had said it was an assignment. There would be rooms, all of this he knew. It would be like rooms he had done before, and he would be more out of security than AG after this. But it was not right. He was supposed to bunk with a girl. He was put into a place she knew and he didn't. He was going to make more mistakes. They always said a super would never refuse to talk to you, but the one back there made him afraid he was already making mistakes. Like being late to start with. He came into the staging room behind Catelyn. He knew it was going to be a security kind of room, and he was not terribly shocked to find guns and knives on the table with the tools, but he didn't even want to touch them, and there was a queasy feeling in his stomach when Catelyn picked up a gun. He grabbed pliers and a circuit tester. Catelyn took a length of fine cord, and he started through the components tray, grabbing things and stuffing them into his pockets by categories.
Electronics? She asked. Yes. Military? Security. You know weapons? No. Better not have one then. What kind are your rooms? Traps? Alarms?
Catelyn's pale brows went up. She nodded, looking more friendly.
Ambushes. There's usually an enemy. He'll kill you. So will traps. Are you good?
He nodded.
I think so.
And he was staring again. Her face had been bothering him all along. It was like he knew her. He knew her the way you knew things from tape. Maybe she was remembering him too just then, the way she was staring. He was not completely surprised, except that it had happened at all. Tape never surprised him. He knew it was not a mistake if he knew her from tape. She was supposed to be important to him, if that was the case, the way his studies were important, and he had never thought that was supposed to happen until he was contracted to somebody. But she was Azzy, like him. And she knew all about her assignment, and he was new and full of mistakes.
I think I'm supposed to know you, he said, worried.
Same, she said. No one had ever paid that much attention to him. Not even Andy. And he felt shaky to know he had run into someone tape meant for him.
Why are we partners? He asked.
I don't know, she said. Then, but electronics is useful, and you know a different room. Come on, tell me what you know. You go in, he said, trying to pull up everything, fast and all of it, the way he would do for a super. There's a door. There can be all kinds of traps. If you make one go off, you lose. Sometimes there's noise. Sometimes the lights go out. Sometimes there's someone after you and you have to get through and rig traps. Sometimes there's an AI lock. Sometimes there's water, and that's real dangerous if there's a line loose. But it's pretend. You don't really get electrocuted.
Dead is dead, she said.
They shoot at you and they trap the doors, and if you don't blow them up, they'll blow you up. And sometimes all the things you said. Sometimes gas. Sometimes ambushes. Sometimes it's outside, and sometimes it's a building. Some people get killed for real. I saw one. He broke his neck. He was shocked. And then he thought it could be him. And he thought about door traps. He took a battery and a coil of wire and a pen light, and Catelyn gave him a black scarf. "For your face," she said. She took a lot of other things, like face black and cord and some things that might be weapons, but he didn't know. "If they have gas masks in staging, it's a good idea to have one," Catelyn said, "but there aren't. So they probably won't do gas, but you don't know. They aren't fair." A bell rang. Time was up. "Come on," Catelyn said, and the door opened and let them out with what they had. Down a hall and through more doors. And upstairs again until they came out in another concrete hall. With a lot of doors. "We're looking for 22, Catelyn said. That was 2 more. Catelyn opened the door and let them into a plain little room with a double bunk. "Top or bottom?" Catelyn said. "I don't care," he said. He had never thought about a room all his own, or even half his. There was a table and 2 chairs. There was a door. "Where does that go?" "Bathroom," Catelyn said. "We share with the room next door. They're Olders. You knock before you go in. That's their rule. If they're Olders, you take their rules." "I'm lost," he said. "That's all right," Catelyn said, emptying her pockets onto the table. "I've been here 5 days. I know a lot of the rules. The Olders are pretty patient. They tell you. But you better remember, or they'll tell the instructor and you're in trouble." "I'll remember." He looked at her emptying pockets and thought how his stuff was right where he wanted it. "Do we have to change clothes for the room?" "In the morning, always." He emptied his pockets, but he put everything together the way he wanted it. Catelyn looked at what he was doing. "That's smart," she said. "You always know where all that stuff is." "All that stuff is?" He looked at her. She was serious. "Of course," he said. "You're all right," she said. "I think you must be pretty good," he said. "They don't get me often," she said, and pulled back the chair and sat down with her arms on the table while he was emptying his pockets. "Do they you?" "No," he said. She looked quite happy in her sober way, and picked up the gun and flipped up the panel on the grip and snapped it shut again. "The gun's real," she said, "but the charges aren't. You still have to check, though. Rounds can get mixed up. Once somebody's did. You always think about that. The enemy could have mixed up rounds and blow you to bits. The practice rounds have a big black band. The real ones don't. But these can still kill you if you get hit close up. You have to be careful when you're working partners. More people can get killed with practice rounds than anything else in training." Catelyn knew more stories about how people got killed than he had ever heard in his life. He felt his stomach upset. But Catelyn wanted to know all about the traps, all about the things he had seen. She was full of questions, and with everything he said, he saw her strange eyes concentrate in the way people would if they were smart and they were going to remember. So he asked about ambushes, and she told him a lot of things she had seen. She was smart, though. She sounded like she could do the things she said. He had never planned to be in security. He had never planned to have a girl for a partner, and he had never imagined anyone like Catelyn. She did sort of smile. It lit up her eyes, but her mouth hardly moved. She made him so nervous he was gladder when she did that than when most people smiled wide open. A smile out of Catelyn was hard to get. You had to really tell her something that impressed her. And when you got one, you wanted another one, because in between there was just nothing. They went to mess, which was what they called the dining hall here. They all had to stand and wait till they could sit, and they were years younger than anyone. Most were boys, very tall, a few were girls, a few were in their teens, and everybody was on strict manners. He would have been terribly nervous if Catelyn had not known when to stand and when to sit and tugged at his sleeve to cue him. But it was very good food, and as much as you wanted, and when the near-grown boys around them talked, they were polite and didn't act annoyed that they were there. "Who's your partner?" one asked Catelyn, and she said, "Florian A.F., sir," like talking to a super. "Welcome in," that boy said, and they made him stand up so people could see him. He was nervous. But the boy stood up beside him and introduced him as Florian AF, Catelyn's partner, a tech. He wasn't sure he was, but it was something like, and they all looked at him a moment, and then they gave him a kind of welcome in, and he could sit down. It was not too different from a dorm, except there they never made you stand up at table because your dining hall was a whole lot of dorms. Green Barracks had its own kitchen, and there were seconds and thirds if you wanted them. You didn't have to have a meds order. The instructor said they had 2 hours for rec, and then they had to have lights out by 2300. But Catelyn thought they ought to go back to their quarters, that was what they called it in Green Barracks, and figure out about the room, because the instructor said they could do that, and they asked each other questions about the room until just before their lights out. He was anxious about undressing. He had never undressed around girls, just the meds and the techs, and they had always been careful to give him something to put on and to turn their backs or leave the room till he had. Catelyn said it was all right if they were roommates, everybody else did, so she took off her shirt and pants, he took off his, and she went to take a shower first. She came back in her clean underwear and threw the dirty clothes in the hamper. She was like he thought she would be under her clothes, all bones and skinny muscle that would have made him think they didn't feed you much in security, except he had just had one of their meals. She was shaped different, all right. Thinner around the chest, her ribs showed, and flat where boys weren't. He had never seen a girl in her underwear. It was thin and didn't hide much, and he tried not to stare or to think about her staring at him. He wasn't sure why it was bad, it still didn't feel right. But that was the way it had to be, because sleeping in their clothes would make them a mess. So they had to be polite with each other and get along with the situation. He took his shower fast, like Catelyn had, because the Olders would want it soon. And he put on his clean underwear and came and got in the bottom bunk, because Catelyn had the top. He got in fast, because she was under her covers and he was out there all alone in his underwear. "Last one," Catelyn said from up above, "has to turn the lights out. It's my rule. All right?" He looked for the switch from where he was lying. He had never been in a place where the lights didn't just go out at the right time. He had never slept anywhere but a barracks with 50 or so boys in the same room. He slithered out of the covers again and dived over and hit the switch and dived back again, remembering the straight line to the bunk, so hard it made the bed shake. He realized he had shaken up Catelyn, too. "Sorry," he said, and tried to be quieter, getting under the covers again. He was very conscious he was with a stranger who might be a 7, but they were different from each other. She was security, and security was very stiff and cold. He didn't want to do wrong or make her annoyed with him. He lay there in the dark in a place with only one person in it, worse than being in a new dorm, very much worse. He felt cold, and it was only partly because the sheets were... All the sounds were gone, except one of the Olders starting up the shower. He wondered where Catelyn had lived before this. She didn't seem nervous. Somebody had told her everything that would happen. Or she was just able to do everything. Having a boy for a partner didn't bother her. She was glad about him being good at traps. He hoped he was good as she expected. He would be terribly embarrassed if he got them blown up in the first doorway. And he was terribly afraid he was going to have to do traps in the dark, which was the hardest, and that meant he was going to need the penlight. Catelyn said he could hide that with his coat, they usually let you have one, because working against the light he was a target for sure. "Don't make noise," she had said. "I'll watch your back. You just work, but noise is going to help the enemy. We can try to get one that way, but that depends on how much time we have. Or whether it's a speed run or a kill run. They'll tell us that." "What's a kill run?" he had asked. "Where you get most of your points for getting the enemy." "Like where you have to set the traps?" he had said, relieved he understood. "Sometimes we do it both ways. You have to take one apart and leave one for the enemy following you. You get extra points if he misses it. Sometimes they make you go back through right away, and you don't know whether it's your trap or his, or whether he got stopped. The blow-ups show, but you can't trust those either, because he could touch it off and set another one. "That's sneaky," she had said, her eyes lighting the way they could. "That's good." He wanted to go blank so that he could go to sleep. There was a room to do in the morning, and he knew he had to rest, but that was hard to do. His mind was so full of things without answers. The room did not make him half so anxious as this place did. Why are they doing this? He wondered, and thinking of the gun on the table and about the too quiet mess hall and all of Catelyn's stories about people shooting each other in the game. Are they sure I belong here? It's not a game, Catelyn had said sternly when he had called it that. A game is what you do on the computers in Rec. This is real, and they cheat. He really wanted to go back to Ag. He wanted to see the horse. He wanted to feed the baby in the morning. But you had to survive the room to do that for just 4 hours. From now on. He really tried to go blank. He tried hard. Why don't they give me tape? Why don't they make it so I know what to do? Why don't they make it so I feel better about this? Has the computer forgotten about me? Ten. Ari thought every night how her letter was on its way now, and she figured out where it had to be if it took so many months. Mama and Ollie would be at Fargon now. She felt a lot better to know where they were. She looked at pictures of Fargon, and she could imagine them being there. Uncle Dennis brought her a publicity booklet for Rezun Space that had Maman's name on it, and pictures of where Maman would be working. She kept it in her desk drawer, and she liked to look at it and imagine herself going there. She wrote another letter every few days, and she told Mama how she was doing. Uncle Dennis said he would have to save up a packet of her letters and send them in a bundle, because it was awfully expensive, and Mama wouldn't care if she got them all at once, all in one envelope. She wanted to address it to Mama and Ollie, but Uncle Dennis said that would confuse the postal people, and if she was going to write to Ollie, Mama would give it to him. The law said... Mama would give it to him. The law said an Azzy couldn't receive any mail except through his supervisor, which was silly for Ollie. Nothing could upset him. But it was the law. So the address had to be Dr. Jane Strassen, Director, Rezun Space, Fargon Station. And her return address was Dr. Dennis Nye, Administrator, Rezun Administrative Territory, Postal District 3, Cyteen Station. She wanted to put her own name on the letter, but Uncle Dennis said she would have to wait until she was grown up and had her own address. Besides, he said, if it was from the administrator of Rezun to the director of Rezun Space, it looked like business, and it would get right to Maman's desk without anybody waiting. She was in favor of that. She asked why their address was Cyteen Station when they lived on Cyteen, and he said mail didn't go to planets without going through stations, and if you wanted to write to somebody on Earth, the address was always Sol Station, but because there was Mars and the Moon, you had to put Earth, then the name of the country. Uncle Dennis tried to explain what a country was and how they started. That was why he got her the History of Earth tape. She wanted to do that one again. It had a lot of really strange pictures. Some were scary, but she knew it was just tape. She went to tape study. She studied biology and botany, and penmanship and history and civics this week. She got excellent on her exams, and Uncle Dennis gave her a nice holo that was a Terran bird. You turned it, and the bird flapped his wings and flew. It came all the way from Earth. Uncle Gerard had got it in Novgorod. But there was only Nellie for play school, and it was boring doing the swings and the puzzle bars with just Nellie. So she didn't go every day anymore. She got tired of going everywhere with Nellie because Nellie worried about everything and Nellie was always worrying about her. So she told Uncle Dennis she could go to tape study by herself and she could go to library by herself because people knew her and she was all right. She took a lot of time getting back from tape study. Sometimes she stopped and fed the fish because there was a security guard right at the door, and Uncle Dennis had said she could do that. Today she went down the tunnel because there had been a storm last night and you had to stay indoors for a few days. One of the things they've sort of alluded to, but not really hammered home, is the fact that the natural flora and fauna of Cyteen is not at all good for us. So the main hazard after a storm is a bunch of Cyteen indigenous-like tumbleweed equivalents that are highly toxic to you. They've sort of mentioned this before. It's not explicitly stated just how bad it is for you, but it's clear that you don't want to encounter it if you can help it. And then there's the platytheres, which are just some sort of burrowing critter that can grow quite large. So she got to thinking how she and Mama had come this way once when she went to see Sir Peterson. You took the elevator. Dr. Peterson was boring as Seeley was, but that hall was where Justin's office was. Justin would be interesting, she thought. Maybe he would at least say hello. And so many people had disappeared that she liked to check now and again and to see if people were still there. It always made her feel safer when she found they were. So if she got a chance to see an old place, she liked to. She took the lift up to the upstairs hall, and she walked the metal strips she remembered. That was nice, too, like once upon a time, when Mama had been down the hall in that very office. But it made her sad, too, and she stopped it, and walked to the center of the hall. Justin's office door was open. It was messy as the last time, and she was happy of a sudden because Justin and Grant were both there. "Hello," she said. They both looked at her. It was good to see someone she knew. She really hoped they would be glad to see her. There weren't many people who would talk to her that weren't Uncle Dennis. But they didn't say hello. Justin got up and looked unfriendly. She felt lonely all of a sudden. She felt awfully lonely. "How are you?" she asked, because that was what you were supposed to say. "Where's your nurse?" "Nellie's home." She could say that now about Uncle Dennis's place without it hurting. "Can I come in?" "We're working, Ari. Grant and I have business to do." "Everybody's working," she complained. "Hello, Grant." "Hello, Ari," Grant said. "Mama went to Fargon," she said, in case they hadn't heard. "I'm sorry," Justin said. "I'm going to go there and live with her." Justin got a funny look. A real funny look. Grant looked at her, and she was scared because they were upset, but she didn't know why. She sat there looking up and wishing she knew what was wrong. Of a sudden, she was real scared. "Ari," Justin said, "you know you're not supposed to be here." "I can be here if I want. Uncle Dennis doesn't mind." "Did Uncle Dennis say that?" "Justin," Grant said. And gently, "Ari, who brought you here?" "Nobody. I brought myself." She pointed. "I came from tape study. I'm taking a shortcut." "That's nice," Justin said. "Look, Ari, I'll bet you're supposed to go straight home." She shook her head. "No, I don't have to. Uncle Dennis is always late and Nellie won't tell him." She kept getting this upset feeling, no matter how she tried to be cheerful. It was not them being bad to her. It was not a mad either. She tried to figure out what it was, but Grant was worried about Justin, and Justin was worried about her being there. Hell with them, Mama would say, meaning the them that kept things messed up. I'm going, she said. But she did it again the next day, sneaked up and popped sideways around the doorframe and said, Hello. That scared them good. She laughed, and came out and was nice then. Hello. Ari, for God's sake, go home. She liked that better. Justin was mad like Maman's mad. She liked that a lot better. He wasn't being mean. Neither was Grant. She had got them, and they were going to yell at her. I did computers today, she said. I can write a program. That's nice, Ari. Go home. She laughed, and tucked her hands behind her and rocked and remembered not to. Uncle Dennis got me a fish tank. I've got guppies. One of them is pregnant. That's awfully nice, Ari. Go home. I could bring you some of the babies. Ari, just go home. I have a hologram. It's a bird. It flies. She pulled it out of her pocket and showed how it turned, and came inside to do it. See? That's fascinating. Please, go home. I'll bet you haven't got one. I know I don't. Please, Ari, why don't you want me here? Because your uncle is going to get mad. He won't. He never knows. Ari, Grant said. She looked at him. You don't want us to call your uncle, do you? She didn't. It wasn't very nice. She frowned at Grant. Please, Justin said. Ari. He was halfway nice, and she was out of tricks. So she went outside and looked back and smiled at him. He was sort of a friend. He was her secret friend. She wasn't going to make him mad, or Grant. She would come by just a second every day. But they were gone the next day. The door was shut and locked. That worried her. She figured that they had either figured out she was coming at the same time every day, or they were truly disappeared. So she sneaked over on her way to tape the next morning and caught them. Hello, she said, and scared them. She saw they were mad, so she didn't laugh at them too much, and she just waved them goodbye and went on. She caught them now and again. When her guppy had babies, she brought them some in a jar she had. Justin looked like that made him feel better about her. He said he would take care of them. But when she took off the lid, they were dead. She felt awful. I guess they were in there too long, she said. I guess they were, Justin said. He smelled nice when she leaned on the desk near him. A lot like Ollie. I'm sorry, Ari. That was nice anyway. It was the first time he had really been just Justin with her. Grant came and looked, and he was sorry too. Grant took the jar away, and Justin said, well, sometimes things died. I'll bring you more, she said. She liked coming by the office. She thought about it a lot. She was leaning up by Justin's desk now, and he had stopped having that bad feeling. He was just Justin, and he patted her on the shoulder and said she had better go. He had never been that nice since a long, long time ago. So she was winning. She thought he would be awfully nice to talk to, but she wasn't going to push and make everything go wrong. Not with him, and not with Grant. He was her friend, and when Mama sent for her, she would ask him and Grant if they wanted to go with her and Nellie. Then she would have all the special people, and she would be all right on the ship, because Justin was a CIT, and he was grown up, and he would know how to do everything you had to do to get to Fargon. She had a birthday coming. She had not even wanted a kid's party. Just the presents, thank you. Even that hadn't made her happy. Until now. She skipped down the hall, playing step on the metal line, and got Nellie's keycard out of her pocket and used it on the lift. Because she knew how security worked. I'm sorry I didn't mention it before, but thank you for tuning in, Tarisha F. Tarisha F? I'm not quite sure. 11.
You damn fool!
Yanni yelled and threw the papers at him, and Justin stood there, paralyzed in shock as the sheets of his last personal project settled on the carpet around them.
You damn fool! What are you trying to do? We give you a chance, we do everything we fucking can to get you a chance. I was sweating my ass off on my own fucking time working up critiques on this shit you dream up to prove to a hard-headed, juvenile, fixated fool that his brilliant junior study project was just that, a fucking junior study project that Ari Emery would have dismissed with a thanks, kid, but we tried that if she hadn't been
I'm going to just take this from the top. It's a great ranting monologue, filled with emotion and pathos. Well, mostly emotion.
You damn fool! What are you trying to do? We give you a chance, we do everything we fucking can to get you a chance. I sweat my ass off on my own fucking time working up critiques on this shit you dream up to prove to a hard-headed, juvenile, fixated fool that his brilliant junior study project was just that, a fucking junior study project that Ari Emery would have dismissed with a thanks, kid, but we tried that. If she hadn't been interested in getting her hands on your juvenile body and fucking over your father, son, which you've just done all by yourself, you damn fool. Get this shit out of here. Get yourself back to your office and you keep that kid out, you hear me?
It hit him in the gut and paralyzed him between wanting to kill Yanni and believing for a terrible moment that it was over, that a little girl's spite had ruined him, and Jordan, and Grant. But then he heard it all the way to the end, and realized it was not entirely that. It was not doomsday. It might as well be.
"What did she say?" he asked. "What did she say about it? The kid brought me a jam jar of fish, Yanni. What am I going to do? Throw her out of the office? I tried."
Get out of here.
"What did she say?"
She asked her Uncle Dennis to invite you to her fucking birthday party. That's all. That's all. You've got yourself a situation, son. You've got yourself a real situation. Seems she's been coming up by the office a lot. Seems she's been dodging security through the upstairs. Seems she's been using her Azzy's keycard to get up and down the lift. Seems she's just real attracted to you, son. What in hell do you think you're doing?
"Is this a psych? Is that it? Dennis asked you to run a psych and see what falls out?"
Why didn't you report it?
"Well, hell, I have a few reasons, don't you think?"
He got his breath back. He got his balance back and stared at Yanni hard and straight.
"It's your security she outflanked. How am I to know Rezune security can't track a 7-year-old kid? I'm not going to be rude to her. No, thanks. I don't want any part of it. I don't want to be the one to ring up Dennis Nye and tell him he's lost track of his ward. You want a kid to get determined about something? You just tell her I'm forbidden territory." "No, thanks. Dennis said be polite, make nothing of it, avoid her where I can. Hell, I started shutting my office when I knew she was due back from tape. What else can I do?"
You could report it.
"And get in the middle of it again? Get myself yanked in for another inquisition? I followed orders. I figured you were bugging my office. I figured security knew where she was. I figured you knew exactly what I said, which was nothing. Nothing, Yanni, except go home, Ari, go home, Ari, go home, Ari. And I got her out. It's a juvenile behavior. She's found an adult to tease. She's being an ordinary brat kid. For God's sake, you make something out of this, you'll fix it, Yanni. Does a damn juvenile fixated fool have to tell you to calm down with this kid and just let her pull her little prank? She can read you. She can read the tension you're pouring on her. I know damned well she can, because I have to fight like hell to keep her from reading me in the 2 or 3 minutes she comes past and says hello, and you and Dennis must be doing real well the way you're coming through to me. Get off her. Just let the whole thing alone, for God's sake, or what in hell are you trying to do? Push her at me till it takes?
A second pause for breath, while Yanni just stood there and stared at him in a way that raised the hair on his neck.
Is that what you're trying to do? Is that what's behind this? Are you helping her to do this? You're paranoid. Damned right. Damned right, Yanni. What are you trying to do to me? Get out of here! Get the fuck out of here! I got you off. I got you off with administration. I spent the fucking morning on you. Petros wasted a day covering your ass, and you're damn right this is a psych, and you just flunked it, son. You just flunked it. I don't trust you. I don't trust you further than I can see where you are. You walk a tight line, a damn tight line. If she shows up again, you get her out of there, and you phone Dennis before her steps are cool. What about Jordan? Now you want favors. What about Jordan? I don't hear anything about them cutting the phone calls, but you're playing with it, son. You're really playing with it. Don't push. Don't push any further. What are you putting in that report? That you're not real casual around that kid. That you've got yourself some real hostilities about that kid. Not about that kid. About the lousy things you're doing to her, Yanni. About your whole damn program, your whole damn project. You're going to drive her crazy, shooting her full of stuff and jerking everything human away from her, Yanni. You're not a human being any longer. And you've lost your perspective, boy. You've damn well lost your professional perspective. You're feeding your own damn insecurities about that situation. You're interpreting, son. You're not observing, and you're not functioning. You've lost your objectivity, and you're off the project, son. You're off the project until you come back here with your head back together. Now get out of here, and don't bother me with these damn playtime projects of yours until you get your problem fixed. Get out! I don't know what I could have said.
He was shaking. He was shaking all over again when Grant came up to the couch and handed him a glass. The ice rattled. He drank a gulp, and Grant settled down beside him with the tablet. Give it a few days. Yanni explodes. He calms down. He shook his head, made a helpless gesture with the glass, and rested his eyes against his hand a moment while the whiskey hit his bloodstream and his eyes... Whoa, I just repeated the line. He shook his head, made a helpless gesture with the glass, and rested his eyes against his hand a moment while the whiskey hit his bloodstream and the cold hit his stomach.
Maybe, he said finally, maybe Yanni's right. Maybe I'm what he said, an assembly line designer making an ass out of myself.
That's not so.
Yanni ripped me to shreds the last 2 designs. He was right, damn it. The whole thing would have blown up. They'd have had suicides.
Grant grabbed the tablet next to him and wrote, "Don't give up," and went on writing. "Dennis said once Ari didn't fake your aptitudes. You've taken it as an article of faith that she did. You've always thought you belonged in education. You do. But Ari wanted you in design. I wonder why." His gut went queasy when he read that. Grant wrote, "Ari did a hell of a lot to you, but she never refused to look at your work."
"I'm off the project," he said,
because that was no news to security and their eavesdroppers.
"He says I hate the kid. It's not true, Grant. It's not true. It's not true."
Grant gripped his shoulder. "I know it. I know it. They know it. Yanni knows it. It's what he does. He was psyching you. He was getting you on tape."
"He said I flunked, didn't he?"
"For God's sake, that's part of it. That's part of the psych out. Don't you understand it? You know what he was doing. The test wasn't over yet. He wanted a reaction, and you gave it to him."
"I'm still pulling up what I said."
He took a second drink, still shaking.
"I can remember what I meant. I don't know if I can figure Yanni well enough to know what he heard."
"Yanni's good. Remember that. Remember that." He tried to. He wrote,
"The question is, whose side is he on?"
Thanks for tuning in, Flippy211. Just finished The Moon is a Harsh Mistress and wanted to say thank you so much for all your work. You, sir, are a legend. You are a legend for tolerating my reading of The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. I'm still sort of disappointed with how that turned out. Mostly because it's a lot harder to read aloud than you'd think. All those, missing participles. Still, it's a worthwhile book. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's a good one. 12. I'm going to take another slug of water. Give me a sec. 12. Horse dipped his head and took grain from Florian's palm.
See, he said to Catelyn. See, he's friendly. He just worries when it's strangers. You want to touch him?
Catelyn did, very carefully. Horse shied back. Catelyn outright grinned as she jerked her hand back.
He's smart.
The pigs and chickens had not impressed Catelyn at all. She had just looked at the chicks in disgust when they piled up against the wall, and retreated from the piglets in some alarm when they rushed up to get the food. Then she had said they were stupid, and when he explained how smart they were about what they ate, she said they wouldn't be bacon if they were smarter about what they got. Wow. Oh, I see. Then she had said they were stupid, and when he explained how smart they were about what they ate, she said they wouldn't be bacon if they were smarter about where they got what they ate. The cows, she said, looked strong, but she was not very interested. But Horse got the first real grin Florian had ever seen from Catelyn, as she climbed up on the rail and watched while Horse played games with them and snorted and threw his head.
We aren't going to eat Horse's babies, Florian said, climbing up beside her. He's a working animal. That means they're not for food.
Catelyn took that in the way she took a lot of things, with no comment, but he saw the nod of her head, which was Catelyn agreeing with something. He liked Catelyn. That took a lot of deciding, because Catelyn was hard to get a hold of, but they had been through the room a lot of times, and only once had he been got, and that was because they had got Catelyn first, and whoa. Okay, this is happening a lot. Why am I skipping lines? That's strange. We'll take it again. He liked Catelyn. That took a lot of deciding, because Catelyn was hard to get a hold of, but they had been through the room a lot of times, and only once had he been got, and that was because they had got Catelyn first, and there had just been a whole lot of the enemy, all Olders. Catelyn had been got twice in all, but the second time she had yelled, "Go!" and given him time to blow a door and get through, which was his fault. He had been slower than he ought, so she got all the enemy but the one that got her, and he got that one, because he had a grenade, and the enemy didn't expect him to have, because he was a tech with his hands full. Catelyn had been real proud of him for that. He was glad it was just a game, and he told the instructor it was his fault, not Catelyn's. But the instructor said they were a team, and it didn't matter. He gave them half their rec time, which was enough time to come over here. And this time he talked Catelyn into coming with him and meeting Andy and seeing all the animals. He was not sure Andy and Catelyn got along, but Catelyn said Horse was special. So he got Andy to show Catelyn the baby.
She's all right,
Catelyn said when she saw the girl Horse, and it played dodge with them, her tail going in a circle and her hooves kicking up the dust of the barn.
Look at her! Look at her move!
Your partner's all right, too, Andy said, with a nod of his head toward Catelyn. Which was something, coming from Andy. Florian felt happy, really happy, because all things he liked fell into place that way, Catelyn and Andy and everything. He remembered then, though, that they had to get back before curfew, which meant they had to hurry.
Time, he said, and to Andy, I'll be back as soon as I can.
Goodbye, Andy said.
Goodbye, Florian said with a little bow, and goodbye,
Catelyn said, which was very unusual, Catelyn usually letting him do the talking when they dealt with anybody but security. They had to walk fast. He had showed Catelyn the shortcuts on the way, and she knew all of them on the way back, which was the way with Catelyn. She was also longer-legged than he was, and she could pick him up. He had thought boys were supposed to be taller and stronger. The instructor said not when you were 7. So he felt a little better about it, and he walked fast, keeping up with Catelyn, breathing harder than she was when they got to Green Barracks. But when they checked in, there was a stop on both of them at the desk. The Azu there looked at his machine and said, "Report to the Super, White Section." That was clear across the town. That was hospital. That meant tape, instead of going to their quarters. "Yes," Catelyn said, taking her card back and clipping it to her shirt. He took his back. "Same instruction," the Azu said. "I wonder why," he said when they went back out onto the walk, headed for White. "No good wondering," Catelyn said, but she was worried, and she walked fast. He kept up with little extra efforts now and again. The sun had gone behind the cliffs a long time ago. The sky was going pink now, and the lights were going to be on before they could get back. The walks and the roads were mostly deserted because most everyone was at supper. It was a strange time to be going to take tape. He felt uneasy. When they got to the hospital, the clerk took their cards and read them, and told them each where to go. He looked at Catelyn when she went off her own way. He felt afraid then, and didn't know what of, or why, except he felt like he was in danger, and she was. If you took tape, you went to hospital in the daytime, not when you were supposed to be having dinner. His stomach was empty, and he had thought maybe it was going to be a surprise exercise. They did that to the Olders, hauled them out of bed, and you could hear them heading down the hall in the middle of the night, fast as they could run. But it was not a room when they got there. It was truly hospital. You couldn't do anything except what you were told, and you didn't think in hospital. You just took your shirt off and hung it up. Then you climbed up on the table and sat there trying not to shiver until the super got there to answer your questions. It was a super he had never seen before. He had never had before, sorry. It was a man who turned on the tape equipment before he even looked at him, and then said, "Hello, Florian. How are you?" "I'm scared, sir. Why are we getting tape now?" "The tape will tell you. Don't be scared." He picked up a hypo and took Florian's arm and shot him with it. Florian jerked. He had gotten nervous about noises like that. The super patted his shoulder and laid the hypo down, and held on to him because that was a strong one. Florian could feel it working very fast. "Good boy," the super said, and his hands were gentle, even if he didn't talk as nice as some supers. He never let him go, and swung him around and helped him get his legs up on the table, and his hand was always there, under his shoulders, on his shoulder or his forehead. "This is going to be a deep one. You aren't afraid now?" "No," he said, feeling the fear go away, but not the sense of being open. "Deeper still. Deep as you can go, Florian. Go to the center, and wait for me there." "13. "I don't want a party," Ari said, slouching in the chair when Uncle Dennis was talking to her. "I don't want any nasty party. I don't like any of the kids. I don't want to have to be nice to them." She was already in bad with Uncle Dennis for borrowing Nellie's key card, because Nellie, being Nellie, had told Uncle Dennis and Uncle Giraud the whole thing when Uncle Dennis asked her. Nellie didn't want to get her in trouble. They had caught her anyway. Nellie had been awfully upset, and Uncle Dennis had had a severe talk with her and with Nellie about security and safety in the building and going where she was supposed to. Most of all, he had said he was mad at Justin and Grant for not calling him and telling him that she was where she wasn't supposed to be, and they were in trouble too. Uncle Dennis had sent them an angry message, and now they were supposed to report her if she came by there instead of the halls she was supposed to be in. Ari was real mad at Uncle Dennis. "You don't want the other kids." "You don't want the other kids?" Uncle Dennis said, like a question.
They're stupid.
"Well, what about a grown-up party? You could have punch and cake, and all of that, and have your presents. I wasn't thinking of having the whole family. What about Dr. Ivanov and Gerard?"
I don't like Gerard.
"Ari, that's not nice. He's my brother. He's your uncle, and he's been very nice to you."
I don't care. You won't let me invite who I want.
"Ari,
It's not Justin's fault I took Nellie's key card.
Uncle Dennis sighed. "Ari,
I don't want an old party.
look, Ari, I don't know if Justin can come."
I want Justin, and I want Grant, and I want Mary.
"Who's Mary?"
Mary's the tech down in the labs.
"Mary's Azzy, Ari, and she'd feel dreadfully uncomfortable. But if you really want to, I'll see about Justin. I don't promise, mind. He's awfully busy. I'll have to ask him, but you can send him an invitation." That was better. She sat up a little and leaned her elbows on the chair arms, and gave Uncle Dennis a lot nicer look.
Nellie isn't going to have to go to hospital either.
She said, "Ari, dear, Nellie has to go to hospital because you made Nellie awfully upset. It's not my fault. You put Nellie in a hard place, and if Nellie has to go to rest a while, I'm sure I don't blame her."
That's nasty, Uncle Dennis.
"Well, so is stealing Nellie's card. Nellie will be back tomorrow morning. Nellie will be just fine. I'll call Justin and I'll tell Mary you thought about her. She'll be very pleased, but I don't promise anything. You be good, and we'll see. All right?"
All right,
she said. She was still mad about having to stay in the downstairs hall on her way back and forth to tape, and she tried and tried to think how she could get around that, but she hadn't figured it out yet. So they were not going to have a party in the big dining room downstairs this year because Uncle Dennis said there was so much work lately anyway, and a lot of people couldn't come. So they were going to have just a little one in the apartment, but the kitchen was going to do the food and bring it up, and there would be just a few grown-ups, and they would have a nice dinner, and have punch and cake and open her presents. She would get to plan the dinner with Nellie and sit at the head of the table and have anything she wanted. And Justin and Grant might be able to come, Dennis said. So they did. Justin and Grant came to the door, and Justin shook Uncle Dennis's hand. Then the scared feeling shot clear across the room. Justin was scared when he came in. Grant, too. And everyone in the room was stiff and nasty and trying not to be. It was her party, damn it. It was her party, damn it. Ari got up with the upset going straight to her stomach and ran over and was as friendly as she could be. You didn't get anywhere by telling people to be nice. You just got their attention and shook them up until they fixed on you instead of what they had fixed on, and then you could do things with them. She didn't have time to work out who was doing what. She just went for Justin. He was the key to it, and she knew that right away. Uncle Gerard was there, and Gerard's Azzy, Aban, and Dr. Ivanov, and a very pretty Azzy named Ule, who was his. And Dr. Peterson with his Azzy Ramy, and her favorite instructor, Dr. Edwards, and his Azzy Gale, who was older than he was, but nice. Dr. Edwards was one of her invites. Dr. Edwards was a biochemist, but he knew about all sorts of things, and he worked a lot with her after her tape. And there was Uncle Dennis, of course, who was talking to Justin. "Hello," she said, getting in the way. "Hello," Grant said, and gave her their presents. She shook it. It wasn't heavy. It didn't rattle.
"What is it?"
she asked. She knew they wouldn't tell her. Mostly she wanted to get hold of them, and they were looking mostly at her.
"You have to wait to open it, don't you?" Justin said. "That's why it's wrapped."
She bounced over and gave it to Nellie to put with all the others that were stacked around the chair in the corner. It was like the whole room took a breath. She let it go a minute to see what the grown-ups were going to do now that they knew for sure that Justin and Grant were her invites. The grown-ups had drinks and got to talking, and everyone was being nice. It was going to be 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 nice. There's no actual emphasis there, so I'm going to have to just throw the dice, which is appropriate given there's 6 of them. The grown-ups had drinks and got to talking, and everyone was being nice. It was going to be nice. I don't know. Anyway, she would make it nice, even if Uncle Dennis was getting over a mad with Justin. It was her party and her say-so, and she intended to have it, and to have a good time. No one was going to spoil it, or she would get them good. Gerard was the nasty one. She was watching him real close, and she caught his eye when no one else was looking, and gave him a real straight look, so he knew that. Then she bounced back over and took Justin's hand and had him look at all her pile of presents, and introduced him and Grant to Nellie, which embarrassed Nellie, but at least you knew Nellie was going to be nice and not make things blow up. She went into her suite and brought out some of her nicest and most curious things to show everyone. She got everyone fixed on her. Pretty soon everybody was being a lot nicer, and people started talking and having a good time, having a before-dinner drink. But she didn't. She didn't want to spoil dinner. It was different than parties she had had before, with the kids. She had a blue blouse with sparkles. A hairdresser had come in the afternoon. A hairdresser had come in the afternoon and done her hair up with braids. She was very careful of it, and careful of her clothes when she sat on the floor. She was very pretty, and she felt very grown up and important, and she smiled at everybody now that they were going to be nice. And she smiled at everybody now that they were being nice. When Celie said it was time to eat and the kitchen staff was going to be bringing the food in, she had Justin sit by her on one side at the table, and Dr. Ivanov sat down next to him on the other, with Dr. Edwards across from him, so he was safe from Gerard, especially since Dr. Peterson sat down next to Dr. Edwards, which left Uncle Dennis and Uncle Gerard farthest away. You weren't supposed to have an odd number at a table, but they did. She had wanted Grant to be there, but Uncle Dennis said Grant would enjoy the party more with the other Azzy, and even Nellie said, while she was helping her get dressed, that Grant would be embarrassed if he had to be the only Azzy at the table where the CITs ate. So, since Nellie said it too, she decided Uncle Dennis knew what he was talking about. She got to sit at the head of the table, and she got to talk to adults, who talked about the labs and about things she didn't know, but she always learned something when she listened, and she didn't mind it at all when the adults quit asking her questions about her studies and her fish and began talking to each other. It was a lot better, she was sure now, than kid parties, where everybody was nasty and stupid. When Justin and Grant had come in, everyone had acted just exactly the way the other kids acted when she came near them. She hated that. She didn't know why they did it. She had thought grown-ups were more grown-up than that. It was depressing to learn they weren't. At least adults covered it up better, and she figured it was easier to deal with if you weren't the target of it. So she started figuring out where the problems were. Uncle Gerard was the worst. He always was. Uncle Gerard was minding his manners, but he was still sulking about something and talking about business to Uncle Dennis, who didn't want him to. Justin wasn't saying anything. He didn't want to. Dr. Peterson was just kind of dull, and he was talking to Dr. Ivanov, who was bored and mostly trying to listen to what Dr. Edwards was saying about the problems with the algae project. Uncle Dennis was watching everybody and being nice and trying to get Gerard, who was next to him, to stop talking. She knew about the algae. Dr. Edwards had told her. He showed her all these sealed bottles with different kinds of algae, and told her what Earth's oceans had in them and what the difference was on Cyteen. So she was trying to listen to that, and she answered Dr. Peterson sometimes when he tried to talk to her instead of Dr. Ivanov. It was still better than playing with Amy Carnath, and nobody was being nasty. So, when they got past cake and punch, and it was time for the adults to drink their drinks, she grabbed Justin by the hand and sat him in the circle of chairs right on the end next to Uncle Dennis. And oh, that made Justin really nervous. That was all right. That was because Justin was smart and knew if Uncle Dennis got mad at him, everything was going to blow up. But she was too smart for that to happen. She opened Uncle Dennis's present first. It was a watch that could do most everything. A real watch. She was delighted, but even if she hadn't been, she would have said she was, because she wanted Uncle Dennis happy. She went and kissed Uncle Dennis on the cheek, and was just as nice as she could be. She opened Uncle Gerard's present next, just to make Uncle Dennis real happy, and it was an awfully nice hollow of the whole planet of Cyteen. You moved it, and the clouds went round. Everybody was real impressed with it, especially Dr. Edwards, and Uncle Gerard explained it was a special kind of hollow and brand new. So Uncle Gerard was a surprise. He had really tried hard to find her a nice gift, and he really liked it himself. She had never known Uncle Gerard liked things like that, but, of course, he was the one who had given her the bird in the cube, too. I'm going to repeat that. She had never known Uncle Gerard liked things like that, but of course, he was the one who had given her the bird in the cube, too. So she understood something about Gerard that was different than him being nasty all the time. She gave him a big kiss and skipped off to open Dr. Ivanov's present, which was a puzzle box. And Dr. Edwards, then, which was a piece of gold plastic, until you put your fingers on it or laid something like a pencil on it, and then it made the shadow in different colors according to how warm it was, and you could make designs with it that stayed a while. It was real nice. She had known whatever he gave her would be. But she didn't make any more fuss over it than over Dr. Ivanov's puzzle and Dr. Peterson's book about computers, and certainly not more than over Uncle Dennis's watch or Uncle Gerard's hollow. It was working, too. They were having a good time. She opened Nellie's presents, which was underwear. Oh, that was like Nellie. And then she opened Justin's, which was a ball in a ball in a ball, all carved. It was beautiful. It was the kind of thing Maman would have had and said, "Ari, don't touch that!" And it was hers. But she mustn't fuss over it, no matter how much she liked it. She said thank you and got right into the huge pile of other things from people who hadn't come to her party. There were things from the kids. Even nasty Amy sent her a scarf, and Sam sent her a robot bug that would really crawl and find its way around the apartment. It was expensive, she knew. She had seen it in the store, and it was awfully nice of Sam. There were a lot of books and tapes and some paints and a lot of clothes. She thought Uncle Dennis probably told people the sizes because everybody knew. And there was clay to work and a lot of games and several bracelets and a couple of cars and even a roll-the-ball maze puzzle from Mary the Azzy down in the labs. That was awfully nice. She made a note to send Mary a thank you. And Sam, too. Presents were good for making everybody feel happy. The grown-ups drank wine, and Uncle Dennis even let her have a quarter of a glass. It was suspicious tasting, like it was spoiled or something. All the adults laughed when she said that. Even Justin smiled. But Uncle Dennis said it certainly wasn't. It was supposed to taste like that, and she couldn't have any more, or she would feel funny and get sleepy. So she didn't. She worked her puzzle box and got it open while the grown-ups drank a lot and laughed with each other, and while Uncle Dennis finally got her watch set with the right date. It was not a bad party at all. She yawned, and everybody said it was time to go. And they called the Azzy and wished her happy birthday while she stood at the door with Uncle Dennis the way Maman would have, and said goodbye and thank you for coming. Everybody was noisy and happy like a long time ago. Dennis was really smiling at Dr. Edwards and shook his hand, and told Dr. Edwards he was really happy he came. Which made Dr. Edwards happy, because Uncle Dennis was the administrator, and she wanted to get Uncle Dennis to like Dr. Edwards. And Uncle Dennis was even nice to Justin, and was really smiling at him and Grant when they left. So all of her invites worked. Everyone left, even Uncle Gerard, and it was time to clean up the presents and all. But Ari figured it was not too late to get another point with Uncle Dennis, so she went and hugged him.
"Thank you," she said. "That was a nice party. I love the watch. Thank you."
"Thank you, Ari. That was nice." And he smiled at her in a funny way, like he was really happy for a lot of reasons. He kissed her on the forehead and told her to go to bed. But she was feeling so good she decided to help Nellie and Seeley pick up the presents, and she gave Nellie special instructions to be careful with her favorites. She turned on Sam's bug and let it run around real fast.
"What's that?"
Nellie cried, and Uncle Dennis came out again to see what the commotion was. So she clapped her hands and stopped it, and snatched it up and took it to her room. Real fast, because she was really trying to be good. XIV. Ari waked in the morning with the minder dinging away and told it to shut up. She had heard it. She rubbed her eyes and really wished she could stay there, but she was supposed to go to tape. It was that day. And there was no more going by Justin's office either. She had a lot of new toys in her bedroom and a lot of new clothes, but mostly she would like to just lie here and go back to sleep, except pretty soon Nellie would be in telling her she had to move. So she beat Nellie. She rolled over and slid over the side of the bed, and went to the bath and slid out of her pajamas and took her shower and brushed her teeth. Usually Nellie was in the room by now. So she put on the clothes Nellie had laid out for her last night and said, "Minder, call Nellie." "Nellie isn't here," the minder said. "Nellie's gone to the hospital." She was scared then. But that could have been the old message. She said, "Minder, where's Uncle Dennis?" "Ari," the minder said in Uncle Dennis's voice, "come to the dining room."
"Where's Nellie?"
she asked again. "Nellie's in the hospital. She's fine. Come to the dining room." She brushed her hair fast. She opened the door and walked down the hall of her suite past Nellie's room. She opened the door to the main apartment and walked on into the sitting room. Uncle Dennis was at the table beyond the arch. She walked in, clipping her keycard on, and Uncle Dennis said she should sit down and have breakfast.
"I don't want to. What's the matter with Nellie?"
"Sit down," Uncle Dennis said. So she sat. She wasn't going to learn anything till she did. She knew Uncle Dennis. She reached for a muffin and ate a nibble dry, and Seeley came and poured her orange juice. Her stomach felt upset. "There," Uncle Dennis said. "Nellie's in hospital because she's getting some more tape. Nellie's not really able to keep up with you, Ari, and you're really going to have to be careful with her from now on. You're getting bigger, you're getting very clever, and poor Nellie thinks it's her duty to keep up with you. The doctors are going to tell her it's not her fault. There's a lot Nellie has to adjust to. But you do have to remember not to hurt Nellie."
I don't. I didn't know the bug was going to scare her."
"If you'd thought, you would have."
"I guess so,"
she said. It was a lonely morning without Nellie, but at least Nellie was all right. She put a little butter on her muffin. It tasted better. "One of the things Nellie has to adjust to," Uncle Dennis said, "is 2 more Azzy in the household, because there will be." She looked at Uncle Dennis, not real happy. Seeley was bad enough. "They'll be yours," Uncle Dennis said. "They're part of your birthday.
But you mustn't tell them that. People aren't birthday presents. It's not nice.
She swallowed a big gulp of muffin. She wasn't at all happy. She didn't want any Azzy but Nellie to be following her around, and if it was like a present, she didn't want to hurt Uncle Dennis's feelings either, for a whole lot of reasons. She thought fast and tried to think of a way to say no.
So you don't have to go to tape study today, Uncle Dennis said. You go over to hospital and pick them up. And you can spend your day showing them what to do. They're not like Nellie. They're both alphas. Experimentals.
A large gulp of orange juice. She didn't know what to think about that. Alphas were rare. They were also awfully hard to deal with. She was sure they were supposed to be watching her. That sounded an awful lot like Uncle Dennis was going to make it really hard for her to do anything she wasn't supposed to. She wasn't sure whether this present came from Uncle Dennis or Uncle Gerard.
You go to the desk, Uncle Dennis said, and you give your card to security, and they'll register them to you. Effectively, you're going to be their supervisor, and that's quite a lot different than Nellie. I'm Nellie's supervisor. You're only her responsibility. This is quite different. You know what a supervisor does? You know how responsible that is?
I'm a kid, she protested. Uncle Dennis chuckled and buttered another muffin.
That's all right. So are they.
He looked up, serious.
But they're not toys, Harry. You understand how serious it is if you get mad at them, or if you hit them the way you hit Amy Carnath.
I wouldn't do that. You didn't hit Azzy. You didn't talk nasty to them. Except Ollie. And Phaedra. For different reasons. But they were both special, even Phaedra.
I don't think you would, dear. But I just want you to think about it before you hurt them. And you can. You could hurt them very, very badly. A lot more than you can Nellie. The way only I could hurt Nellie. You understand?
I'm not sure I want them, Uncle Dennis.
You need other children, Harry. You need somebody your own age.
That was true. But there wasn't anybody who didn't drive her crazy. And it was going to be awful if they did, because they were going to live in.
The boy is Florian, the girl is Catelyn, and it's their birthday, too. Well, just about. They'll live in the room next to yours and Nellie's. That's what it was always for. But they'll have to go back into the town for some of their lessons, and they'll do tape study in the house, just like you do. They're kids just like you, and they have instructors they have to pay attention to. They're very quick. In a lot of things, they're ahead of you. That's the way with Azzy, especially the bright ones. So you're going to have to work to keep up with them.
She was listening now. No one had ever said she wasn't the best at anything. She didn't believe they could be. They wouldn't be. There was nothing she couldn't do if she wanted to. Mama always said so.
Are you finished?
Yes, sir.
Then you can go. You pick them up and you show them around, and you stay out of trouble, all right?
She got down from table and she left, out into the halls, past security and the big front doors, and across the driveway and along the walk to the hospital. She ran part of the way, because it was boring otherwise. But she was dignified and grown up when she passed the hospital doors and gave her card to hospital security at the desk. Yes, sirrah, they said. Come this way. So they brought her to a room. And they left, and the other door opened. A nurse let in two Azzy her own age. The girl was pale, pale blonde, with a braid. The boy was shorter, with hair blacker than their uniforms. And Uncle Dennis was right. Nobody ever looked at her that way when she had just met them. It was like friends right off. It was more than that. It was like they were in a scary place, and she was the only one who could get them out of it. "Hello," she said. "I'm Harry Emery." "Yes, sirrah." Very softly, from both, almost together. "You're supposed to come with me." "Yes, sirrah." It felt really, really strange. Not like Nellie. Not like Nellie at all. She held the door button for them, and she took them out by the desk and said that she was taking them. Here are their key cards, sirrah," the man at the desk said. and she took them and looked at them. There were their names. Florian AF-9979 and Catelyn AC-7892, and the alpha symbol in the class blank, and the wide black border of house security across the bottom. She saw that, and a cold feeling went through her stomach, a terrible feeling, like finding the security guard in Maman's apartment. She never forgot that. She had nightmares about that. But she didn't let them see her face right then. She got herself straight before she turned around and gave them their cards, and they put them on. And they had different expressions, too, out here, very serious, very azzy. They were listening to her, they were watching her, but they were watching everything. You had to remember how they had been in the room, she thought. You had to think how they had looked in there, to know that that was real, too, and that they were two things. They were security, and they were hers, and it was other people they were watching like that, every little move that went on around her. I wanted an Ollie, she remembered, but that was not what Uncle Dennis had given her. He gave her security. Why? She wondered, a little mad, a little scared. What do I need them for? But they were her responsibility. So she took them out and down the walk to the house and checked them in with house security. They were very correct with the officer on duty. Yes, sirrah, they said very sharply to the officer, and the officer talked fast and ran through the rules for them in words and codes she had never heard. But the Azzy knew. They were very confident. Uncle Dennis hadn't said they had to come straight home, but she thought they should. Except she went by Uncle Dennis's office, and Uncle Dennis was there, so she took them in and introduced them. Then she took them home, and showed them where they would live, and their own rooms, and explained to them about Nellie. You have to do what Nellie says, she said. So do I, most of the time. Nellie's all right. They were not quite nervous. It was something else. Especially Catelyn, who had this way of looking at everything real fast. Both of them were very tense and very stiff and formal. That was all right. They were respectful, and they were being nice. So she got out her Star Chase game, set it up on the dining table, and explained what the rules were. None of the other kids ever listened the way they listened. They didn't tease or joke. She passed out the money and dealt out the cards and gave them their pieces. And when they started playing, it got real tense. She wasn't sure whether it was a fight or a game, but it was different than Amy Carnath, a lot different, because nobody was mad, they just went at it. And pretty soon she was leaning over the board and thinking so hard she was chewing her lip without knowing it for a while. They liked it when she did something sneaky. They were sneaky right back, and the minute you got your pieces where you could get Florian in trouble, Catelyn was moving up on the other side. Star Chase was usually real fast to play, and they were at it a long time till she could get enough money to get enough ships to build. And they were at it a long time till she could get enough money to get enough ships built to keep Catelyn off till she could get Florian cornered. But then he asked if the rules let him join Catelyn. No one had ever thought of that. She thought it was smart. She got out the rule book and looked. They don't say you can't, she said, and her shoulders were tired, and she was stiff from sitting still so long. Let's go put the board in my room so Celie won't mess it up, and we'll have lunch, all right? Yes, Sarah, they said. They had a way of doing that to remind her they weren't just kids, every time she tried to make them relax. But Florian carried the board in, and he didn't spill it. And she thought she had rather go have lunch in North Wing. Uncle Dennis let her go to the restaurant there, the little one, where the Azzy and the manager all knew her. So that was where she took them, to Changes, which is the name of the restaurant apparently, down next to the shops, at the corner, where mostly staff had lunch. She introduced them. She sat down and told them to sit down, and she had to order for them. Sirrah, Florian whispered, looking awfully embarrassed after a moment of looking at the menu. "What are we supposed to do with this?"
"Pick out what you want to eat."
"I don't know these words. I don't think Catelyn does." Catelyn shook her head, very sober and very worried-looking. So she asked them what they liked, and they said they usually had sandwiches at lunch. She ordered that for them and for herself, and thought that they were awfully nervous and kept looking at everything and everyone that moved. Somebody banged a tray and their eyes went that way like something had exploded.
"You don't have to be worried,"
she said. They made her nervous, like something was going to happen.
"Calm down, it's just the waiters."
They looked at her, very sober. But they didn't stop watching things. Just as serious and just as sober as they were in the game. The waiter brought their drinks and they looked at him, all over, real fast. So fast it was hard to see them doing it, but she knew they were doing it because she was watching. Nothing like Nellie. Uncle Dennis talked about being safe in the halls, and got her to Azzy, who thought the waiter was going to jump them.
"Listen,"
she said, and two serious faces turned toward her and listened, Azzy-like.
"Sometimes we can just have fun, all right? Nobody's going to get us here. I know all these people."
They calmed right down, like it was magic, like she had psyched them exactly right. She let go a little breath and felt proud of herself. They sipped their soft drinks, and when the sandwiches came, with all the extra stuff that came with them, they were real impressed. They liked it. She could tell. But,
"I can't eat this much,"
Florian said, worried-like.
"I'm sorry." "That's all right. Quit worrying about things. Here?"
"Yes, Sarah." She looked at Florian and looked at Catelyn, and all that seriousness, and thought of ways to unserious them, and then remembered that they were Azzy, and it was in their psych set to be like that, which meant you couldn't do a lot of things with them. But they weren't stupid. Not at all. Alphas were like Ollie, and that meant they could take a lot that Nellie never could. Like in the game, she pushed them with everything she had, and they didn't get mad and they didn't get upset. They were a big job, but not too big for her. Then she thought, not for the first time that morning, that they were a responsibility with a capital R. And you didn't take on Azzy and then just dump them, ever. Uncle Dennis was right. You didn't get people for presents. You got somebody who wanted to love you, and you couldn't ever just move away and leave them. Maman did, she thought, and it hurt, the way it always hurt when that thought popped up. Maman did. But Maman didn't want to. Maman had been worried and upset for a long time before she went away. She would have to write and tell Maman about them, fast, so Maman would know she had to tell Uncle Dennis to send them with her, because she couldn't just leave them. She knew what that felt like. She wished she had gotten to pick them out, because her household was getting complicated. She would much rather have an Ollie for hers, and one and not two. She could have said no. Maybe she should have said no, and not let Uncle Dennis give them to her. She had thought she could sort of go along with it, like everything else. Till they looked at her that way over at the hospital, and they just sort of psyched her, not meaning to, except that they wanted to go with her so much, and she had wanted somebody to be with her just as bad. So now they were stuck with each other, and she couldn't leave them by themselves. Not ever. And that is where we will call it for today. Tomorrow we will be back on at the same frag time, same frag station. It'll be a bit of a longer one this go-round. Quite a bit longer, probably. But yeah. Moving right along. We're approaching the halfway point. We're almost there. We're somewhere, I think, in Book 2 equivalent. It isn't really divvied up that way in this edition.
It's just all done as one long story as opposed to 3 separate volumes. It's an omnibus edition type thing. It's, I think, every edition since then has been that way. I'm not sure. I haven't looked it up. Anyway, it's good. It's a good time. I can only hope I'm doing it justice. Anyway, thanks to everyone who tuned in. Appreciates you. Hope people are enjoying. I know I am. My lips are a little funky. I'm a tad dehydrated. Didn't drink enough water the last couple days. That's on me. Me being a goof. Anyway, I think that's it. I don't think there's anything terribly salient to yap about. So yeah, today, tomorrow, and the day after. 3 days in a row. Crazy thought, I know. Anyway, see you all later. Until next time, stay safe, stay sane, and be decent to each other.